Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to another game of StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm. Now today I wanted to show you a game where I executed the easiest out of easiest Zerg all-ins that you can possibly go for. And I know what you're thinking, it's like, Lowko, you're not going for a 6 pool, but honestly, 6 pools rather aren't really that viable. So today I wanted to show you a build that is very easily executed, that most of you will be able to pull off without any issues, and that you will likely be able to climb the ladder with. And I feel like this is probably the most viable build right now that you can be going for, because it is 9 Pool Banelings, and a lot of the GSL peoples are doing this build right now. I believe it was Rogue versus Sulky that I saw them doing this build, and it was extremely strong. And honestly, I've been doing it a bunch on the ladder and it works great. So here we go. This is a 9 spawning pool right there. So before the Overlord or anything like that, you know, you throw up the spawning pool and then you drone up until 10 supply, and at the 10 supply mark you get a gas geyser. Then you make another drone right there, and then you make an Overlord, and afterwards, the only thing you need to worry about is making Zerglings. Now, one important thing to keep in mind right here, okay, is that when your opponent just goes for a pool first, you will likely already be dead. So that's the whole nature of this build, is that if you're gonna go for an all-in, very, very seldomly it will actually work against people that open up safely. So if your opponent is opening up with a hatchery first, you will be able to squeeze out a victory most of the time, but, well, you know, in my case, my opponent is going for exactly that. But if my opponent would have gone for a pool first, there's a big chance he would have been able to hold it right there. So once again, you go for a 9 pool, then you go for a 10 gas guys right there, then you go for another drone, another Overlord, and then slowly but sure you follow it up with Zerglings, and when you hit 50 gas, you pull one of the drones out of the gas geyser and make it into a Baneling nest. So pretty straightforward build order right there, and at this point I will be able to run across the map with a whole bunch of Zerglings, and I'm just gonna keep reinforcing with more and more Zerglings and try and win right here. Now keep in mind, like I said, there's a big chance that you will lose if your opponent did open up with a pool first, but that's just what Zerg versus Zerg and what all-ins are all about. 50%, I would say maybe 60% of the time this build will work in like Diamond League, and above that it's gonna get more difficult. Below that you're gonna have a higher win rate. Now my opponent is a mid-masters player if I'm not mistaken, but you know, you can still see the efficiency right here. So I'm trying to just do a bunch of damage. My opponent did go for a hatch first right there, trying to buy as much mining time here as possible. And the one thing you want to try and not let happen is that you get stuck. Okay, if you get stuck with your Zerglings between a bunch of drones, you are in a lot of trouble. But here we go. I'm gonna be morphing in a bunch of my Banelings. Make sure I have 2 on the high ground and 2 on the low ground, and I'm gonna separately hotkey those while once again harassing with more and more Zerglings right here. Just running up and down. Just trying to make sure that my Banelings come out safely and that I can start dealing as much damage to his drones as possible. Now you do want to be kind of safe with your Banes, unless you get big detonations off like that. I do want to keep at least 2 of them alive and target firing down the spine for as much damage as possible as well, while just simply cleaning up all of the other units that my opponent does have out. And my opponent does get a little bit salty right there, not too surprising, because hey, these kind of losses are kind of painful. But honestly, like, this is, in my opinion, the easiest to execute viable Zerg cheese that you can go for right now, that will usually end the game, as you can see, before the 5-minute mark. So once again, let's just speed through this a little bit quickly so you can see the build order without me having to make like a separate video about it, because that's really not necessary. You go for a 9 spawning pool, so you drone up until 9, make a spawning pool, and then drone up until 10. There we go, the spawning pool. Then you drone up until 10 and get the gas geyser going right here. Then you make another drone, start an Overlord. There we go, Overlord in production. Put 3 drones into the gas geyser, and when the Overlord pops, you make 6 Zerglings right here. Then when you have 50 gas, you pull 1 drone out of the gas, make a Baneling nest, and just reinforce with mass Zerglings. So in total, you have 7 drones on minerals right there, and 2 drones in the gas geyser. Now, if you want to be a little bit fancy, you want to get slightly more income, I could optimize this, for example, by moving this drone right here towards a closer mineral patch, which would give me a little bit more time. And also a little bit more income, and that way I would be able to get a little bit more stuff. But like I said, please keep in mind that you are gonna be losing if your opponent opens up with a pool first in most scenarios, because he's just gonna have too much stuff, and his spine crawler can be done a lot earlier because he will realize that he is in some sort of trouble by seeing that there's no natural up and all that kind of shenanigans. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I want to thank you guys all for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I hope you have an amazing day. Don't forget to smile, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!